Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning. This is our Monday show, and I can report in a big piece of announcement, big piece of news, that I won a fight with a blind. It shouldn't be a big piece of news, it should be normal everyday stuff, and yet here in fact we are. Thankfully it's not the only news. There will still be plenty of wrestling news that I'm sure you are waiting for. We'll be talking today about the Bad Blood pay-per-view coming up, how that relates to SummerSlam, the Liv Morgan Rhea Ripley feud. We're going to talk a little bit on CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, because in fact Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley ties into that directly. The connection of Bad Blood and War Games will also come up in that one. That's going to be our top story, also discussing the breakdown of Judgment Day. After that, we're going to talk Charlotte Flair, plans for WrestleMania for Charlotte Flair, and how they immediately impact Bianca Belair. We're going to be talking Alexa Bliss and the impending return there as well. We're going to briefly touch on Matt and Jeff Hardy and negotiations with WWE. However brief they may have been, they did in fact happen, before then going on to discuss MVP, what he's actively doing, and why things did not work out between him and the WWE. Finally, we're going to touch on the women's division in NXT, particularly the newest collection of debutantes being Julia, Stephanie Vaca and Delta, who are all bound for the NXT women's division over the next few days. Bear with me just a second, guys. Just going to... So, as we will of course start with our top story, and we'll catch up with the chat as we can, but I want to start by just going through a few of the comments that we've already seen. We can see, for example, Sean saying, do you see Seth being a fair referee? No. Why would that ever happen? Sean is also asking if WWE offered anything for Buddy Matthews as regards contract. No, because his contract with AEW did not expire, so legally no one else could contact him. We also have Spider-Boss talking about Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan lasting until Bad Blood. Sean is hoping that Liv wins, and plenty of people saying hi. Welcome Marcel, welcome Daniel, welcome Sean Garner, welcome KJ, welcome Michael as well. Good to see so many of you. We will of course start with that top story straight away. Let's dive into it, because Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan is a feud that will be dominating the headlines for many, many weeks to come. This is not a feud that will be a one and done. In fact, there are a number of feuds right now which are not going to be one and done. SummerSlam is being looked on not as the end of storylines, but as a jumping off point. And when you consider that Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley basically started in the build-up to WrestleMania, where Nia Jax and Becky Lynch were involved, there's a lot more at play here to potentially make this one last a full year. So far, because Liv Morgan has been available and Rhea Ripley hasn't been, I gotta say, haven't been too bored of it. I don't think anyone else is either. And the WWE discussing the possibility of a Hell in a Cell match, doubt that surprised anyone, for the upcoming Bad Blood pay-per-view. They initially wanted one, now there's a temptation to have two, because while Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley are already in this discussion, we also have CM Punk and Drew McIntyre already in this discussion. With this in mind, it'd be a great time for a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, but that's long gone. There are some backstage concerns that the Bad Blood pay-per-view, which happens just before War Games, will step on toes, particularly given if they do go for two Hell in a Cell matches as is being considered. That's either going to be squashed by the subsequent War Games matches, or it's going to squash the subsequent War Games matches. Thankfully, the bodies on the line would be very different, and that should hopefully keep things fresh. Though of course, they are both in closed cages, and it will be followed shortly afterwards by Elimination Chamber. There's only so much they can really do. The result at SummerSlam isn't set. This may be something that they deviate with, and there were discussions taking place with Becky Lynch about appearing already, but Liv Morgan is currently the favourite to defeat Rhea Ripley and retain her championship, thanks largely to the involvement of Judgment Day. Not just Dominic Mysterio, Judgment Day. There is a clear split, a schism you might say, between the current setup of Judgment Day into three distinct groupings. Damian Priest, the current World Heavyweight Champion, and Rhea Ripley are both firmly set on the face side, with Finn Balor and JD McDonough on the other, very much against the run of play with the heel side. Carlito, strangely, not actually a Judgment Day member but will be mentioned here, could briefly partner Dominic Mysterio, but there are pitches right now to have Dominic stand alone. In fact, in the wake of his performance working opposite Rhea Ripley and subsequently working opposite Liv Morgan, there is a huge level of excitement about the idea of Dominic Mysterio standing alone and seeing if he could convince some of those boos to turn into cheers. Plenty more headlines still coming. We already have 70 people in the chat, but only the 17 likes. Please remember to hit that thumbs up as you come in. Let's catch up with some in the chat because it does look like there's plenty of comments coming in. Bliss Gamer says, howdy everyone, excited to see what the Wyatt 6 do tonight. There is already some teasing happening on social media. Kervin says, who's Delta? You're talking about the airport Delta maybe? I am not. Juan says, hey Tom, welcome Juan. Eric says, good evening Tom, how are you doing? Can't wait for the return of Damage Control. Indeed, incoming. Asuka has now recovered pretty well from her surgery. She's not expected back in the ring just yet. She is still protecting the knee and hiding a knee brace with some of her clothing choices, but she will be back sooner rather than later. Dakota Kai, Io Sky and Kairi Sane will continue to fly the flag as soon as Triple H remembers that there are Women's Tag Team Championships. Amari says, can't wait for the WWE tonight. Noob says, how are you doing today, Mr. Colohue? Doing very well, thank you, Noob. Welcome to the show. Sean says, according to PWInsider and Wrestling Observer, Raquel is returning soon. Raquel Rodriguez has essentially been waiting for the right moment to make her return. Certainly a moment to protect Liv Morgan in this way and work as a natural antithesis to Rhea Ripley after the feuds they've already had could work in that favour. Raquel Rodriguez has a medical condition which is currently preventing her from being involved. If that has cleared up, they will use her, but they will use her sparingly. The Glorious One says, do you have any news on Brock Lesnar? None whatsoever. As far as I'm aware, he will be running down his contract and then he will be going bye-bye for good. Spider-Boss says, my pick for Rhea versus Liv match at SummerSlam is Dom distracts the referee, Liv hits Rhea with the Women's World Championship so Rhea doesn't lose clean. If there's one thing I feel certain of, it's that Rhea Ripley is not going to lose clean. Pardon me. Eric says, is there a chance Liv and Rhea could go all the way till Mania 41? A chance? I wouldn't say it's too likely. There's a Royal Rumble in the way. Kervin says, Rhea versus Liv Morgan is better than Becky versus Liv or Becky versus Rhea, in my opinion. It's certainly fresher. RM says, hello Tom, will Raquel be a factor in the Rhea-Liv feud? I haven't heard anything about an impending return, though it is being reported elsewhere. Also says, which brand is more likely to get women's war games? Triple H doesn't really care about brands. They will be multi-brand, both of them. Cal says, hey Tom, happy to see the house coming along. You deserve it, and I know you say you're still not used to getting compliments, but you deserve it. You're a great person. Okay, whoa, Cal, chill out there. Not going to say that one out loud. Not going to say that one out loud. We are still making good progress, so you can still see a bit of wall here. Larger part of wall here. In fact, if I roll that way out of the way, you can see there's still some wall that needs to be broken down here. There's a bit more up top. A bit of green creeping through there, a bit of green creeping through here. But slowly but surely, the walls are getting cleared. There's a lot more other things I need to focus on. The office is not really a priority at this moment. But once that's cleared, you can get some white paint on, even just in this corner, and we'll suddenly have a much more exciting area. Yeah, also a good point to say, Cal, thoughts and prayers to Southport. Wrestler Fan says, will Uncle Howdy or the Wyatt 6 wrestle at SummerSlam 2024? I expect Uncle Howdy versus Chad Gable. Sid says, would there be a first blood match at Bad Blood? I find it unlikely. It is a little bit uncouth at this point in time. And in the PG era, which we still kind of are in, it won't be something that the WWE want. It'll just be something that Cody Rhodes does. Spider-Boss says, a week ago when the Judgement Day arrived on Raw, Finn Balor and JD went together while Rhea and Priest were together. Those are indeed the obvious splits that I'm suggesting. Sean says, DIY is defending against the Bloodline and Isla and Alba defending against Jade and Bianca. Do you see new champions? I potentially see the Bloodline winning, but I don't find it certain. As regards Jade and Bianca, more on that story later. Kel says, I also have to say I enjoyed your video on the Wyatt 6. Only person I trust on WWE news and especially anything concerning the Wyatt 6. Yeah, that video has gone particularly well, been very well received, and given that had a 2-week break, has really helped to sort of relaunch and reinvigorate the channel, and certainly it's been very well received, and I expect it to continue in that vein. I'm very happy overall with the end results there. Gained 12 subscribers, made me an okay amount of money for the effort put in, but most importantly, more than 1,200 viewers, quite a lot of which were brand new. Aaron says, I'm excited to see if/how much Dexter will speak tonight if the VHS is for him. Spider says, Raquel Rodriguez could be Liv's enforcer once she returns. Certainly could be. And Shah Games says, hi Tom, are we heading towards a Braun versus Ilya feud for the IC title as we get closer to Bad Blood? Yes, indeed, we are. Sean says there's a Money in the Bank briefcase in the way between Liv and Rhea. True, but that's also the case between Bayley and Nia. Kevin says the only match that really needs a special referee was Liv versus Rhea. Yes, but there isn't an obvious referee choice. Wants to say, Tom, I know this is my opinion, but I also believe that AEW is struggling with ratings is because there's also no guarantee they'll be on TV, considering Tony Khan rejected 4 offers per Dave Meltzer. Appreciate you sourcing that one, well. Bailey says, will we see any calls from NXT after SummerSlam? More on that story later. Angel says, this run has been Liv's best work. I wholeheartedly agree. Sam, you're asking for the results of a match that was likely to take place in 3 months. 3 months. And Juan says, let's get more thumbs up. We have 85 people watching, 26 likes, 4 more. Gets us to 30. Let's keep that rolling. Spider-Boss says, do you think Bianca and Jade regain the women's tag team titles? Personally, not yet. More on that story later. Carl says, I really can't wait for the Bliss stuff. Could she restart the Firefly Funhouse? I hope she did her best work with that character. I think her and Howdy could be terrifying at times. Sean says, I never want to see another gauntlet match anymore. They used to be unpredictable. Now they aren't. And Source World 300 says, do you think Roman Reigns will return? Yes, soon, but you'll never see it coming. Zane says, will we see any TNA wrestlers on the WWE Mania roster? I'm imagining you mean main roster. It's unlikely, but not certain. Kevin says, I don't understand why Triple H hates kickoff show matches. He doesn't. Makes sense to have a women's tag team championship be the kickoff show or any match. It does. In fact, there have been more kickoff show matches under Triple H than in this period of time under Vince McMahon. Joe says, is DIY going to lose on SmackDown? Spoilers. Roger says, when is Bad Blood? I believe it's in October. Sean says, are you excited for Joe Hendry's concert on NXT this week? I don't watch NXT regularly. I'll probably tune in for that, gotta be honest. Angel says, how do you see Roman returning? I see him arriving at SummerSlam alongside Paul Heyman, Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, and distracting Solo Sikoa. And then sort of reforming the Bloodline and then sort of unreforming the Bloodline. And before you know it, WrestleMania's got Roman versus Solo. Carl says, I'm enjoying how the Wyatt Six haven't attacked anyone excluding Gable since the massacre, because this group has nothing but time. I want to see why they're formed together, and we're seeing that bit by bit. Yes, the phases will be long term. Hey John, how you doing? JD says, say Tom, any Becky news? Nothing major, only that the WWE have still been talking to Becky Lynch and making these things happen. Cal says, I might be getting ahead of myself, but Jacob Fatu is the greatest wrestler of all time. Yes, you are. Spider-Bot says, recently Bianca said she was devastated after the 2021 SummerSlam squash. To this point, I didn't get the point of having Becky squashing Bianca, because they wanted Bianca to lose in a way that protected Bianca long term. It was a sucker punch, it was a heel turn for Becky, and long term it was a big win. Chris says, and confirms Bad Blood is October 5th. Thank you, Chris. Cal says, are you doing a watch along for Friday and Saturday, Tom? Nope, just Saturday. We will have a full SummerSlam watch party. We will not have a SmackDown watch party. We don't do them anymore. Joey says, hey Tom, how's it going? Going well, thank you, Joey. Welcome to the show. Our next piece of news is on Charlotte Flair, and it's what I believe to be a good piece of news. Charlotte Flair is cleared and ready to return to the WWE. The WWE will phase her back in carefully due to the risk involved in major knee injuries. Bayley losing to Nia Jax seems the easiest way to set up Charlotte Flair's return. That would give her an immediate championship match against Nia Jax, which she could lose, establishing her once again as a face, because Charlotte Flair is designed to be a face, and that would essentially mean Bayley swept out of the way a little bit. This would also then mean we could move on to Bianca Belair versus Nia Jax. Having a heel champion really does help with that division as it's laid out, but it also means long term we get onto, once again, the match that they were originally planning for this year's WrestleMania, Charlotte Flair versus Bianca Belair. That is a match that they're currently talking about for next year's WrestleMania, potentially for the gold. The Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill tag team was designed to have already run its course, allowing for the tease of a Belair heel turn to set Belair up against Bayley, or in fact against Jade Cargill. Unfortunately, the WWE aren't really happy with what they've seen from Cargill as of yet. Natalya and Meiko Satomura have been working to try and improve Cargill, as have Flair and of course Belair, but the WWE are about ready to move Belair out of that whole situation. Charlotte Flair would open a door to do that. A question I have for all of you. Let's boost this chat rate. Do you think Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill have been a good tag team pairing. What's your opinion on this? I want as many opinions as we can get. Do you think Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair have worked and been a good tag team pairing? Razar says, what exactly is the end goal with Jade and Bianca being a tag team? I want to see Bianca back in the singles division. Feels like the tag team is holding her back. It's almost like you knew what I was about to say. Cal says, I saw the guy who Meltzer does pods with say there isn't hype about the Wyatt 6, and I mean, Monday showed that people can't get enough. That pop was insane. Meltzer does podcasts with a few people. I'd imagine you mean Brian Alvarez. Joey says, there's a plan for Joe Hendry to go after the NXT title. Didn't he already? Rickan says, do you think Malachi Black will stay in AEW like Buddy Murphy? Also, do you know when his contract is up? I believe his contract lasts until 2025. Personally, I still think he will be leaving and returning to the WWE. Cal says, I really can't wait for Charlotte's return. She's a goat for a reason. Says Guo, but I'll take it as goat. Unless you're trying to specify gender, in which case I get it. Spider-Boss says, I'd rather see Charlotte winning her 15th women's title beating Bayley rather than have either Nia or Tiffany beating Bayley. I think it's very possible, in fact, that it ends up being Tiffany versus Charlotte, but Bianca Belair versus Charlotte may well happen earlier. Sean says, with Roxanne defending this week at night 1 of Great American Bash after she defeats Tia, do you see Julia appearing to set up Roxanne versus Julia for No Mercy? More on that later. Roger says, do you think Charlotte Flair will get a big pop? Yep. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. A Robin Hood cartoon taught me that. One says, hey Tom, since last week you reported TK is considering paying hefty money offers to keep talent. Could that also be because wrestlers who leave AW for WWE might not come back? Yes. Spider-Boss says, if someone has to be the heel between Bianca and Jade, Jade must be the heel. I mean, I don't see them actually having a feud anymore. Juan says yes and no, which is a fair response. Joey says, I don't think Jade has gone much better with Bianca. An NXT run would have been better. Spider-Boss says, I think Bianca and Jade has been a good tag team. KJ thinks Jade is holding Bianca back and maybe Jade should have gone to NXT for a minute. More on that later. Kervin says, what happens to Rhea versus Bianca for WrestleMania 41? Seems at this point like it's unlikely. The WWE have made a lot of changes since the injury to Rhea Ripley and the absence of Becky Lynch, suggesting that we may get a Liv Morgan Becky Lynch match at WrestleMania. And just says, I like it, but I feel like they'll split up soon, but the question, who's turning on who? Joe says they've been alright, there are worse tag teams on the women's division. Radar thinks it's dragged Bianca down and Jade hasn't stepped up either. Brad says not really a good pairing at all. Noob says they're a great tag team, but it is holding Bianca back. Joey says, I think Triple H kind of messed up fast-tracking Jade to the main roster. John says, hey Tom, do you think they're going to do Uncle Howdy versus Chad Gable at SummerSlam because they did not confirm that match? Personally, yes, I believe they will. King says, Tom, I see Seth screwing Punk giving Drew the win. Personally, that's where my prediction goes as well. The other Mike says, yes, they should do more matches. Jade being bad in the ring is overblown, especially since we see Chelsea Green constantly in matches. Kelvin says she returns to the championship match. There's not Mr. McMahon booking the show, right? No, but if she loses it, it does sort of... It's become a thing in WWE that Charlotte Flair right now is losing a lot of championship matches. She certainly did before she left anyway. Kel says the Cargill situation is tough. She isn't as polished as the WWE would have hoped. She needs a lot of work. There's definitely talent there. However, Belair is a star and can't stay a mid-carder for long. Bianca Belair is not a mid-carder. Though the tag team, I get what you're saying. Eric says Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill tag team has underpowered the rest of the WWE women's tag team division. So no, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill tag team hasn't improved the division, which I don't think is an unfair comment. Roger says, I could have told WWE that Jade Cargill would not be a good wrestler. I still think she's a good wrestler. I think she's had bad luck and some confidence issues. Sean says the Olympics Committee is suing Logan Paul and his Prime Energy drinks over copyright violation claims. Okay. Didn't know that one. Spider-Boss says Jade was okay on the mic in AEW and now in WWE she hasn't cut any promos. Fair. Bailey says one of the concerns over Jade is that she still hasn't picked up the WWE style. Yes, that is a fair comment. I think a large part of that is that she hasn't actually spent any time in NXT where they do that. Danny says, hello Tom, what have I missed late to the party? 2 pieces of news, one about Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, one about Charlotte Flair's return, which also touched on Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Gordy says, what's up Tom? I see NBC has been promoting Friday Night SmackDown's move to the USA Network a lot during the Olympics. They spent a lot of money to make that one happen, I tell you something. Chris says if Bayley loses her WWE Women's Championship to Nia Jax at SummerSlam, that is bad for business. Friday we'll talk about the betting averages. We'll talk about the favourites for the matches. Give you a bit of a hint, Nia Jax is the favourite to win that match. Cal says, I think we'll see tonight the confirmation of Gable versus Howdy at SummerSlam. I think Nikki will in some way offer the match or accept it. Nikki would definitely be the ideal person for it. King says, Tom, I see Jimmy returning this Friday, screwing Jacob and Tama Tonga out of the Tag Team Championships. I go slightly differently. I have Jimmy returning at SummerSlam. Thank you, Sid, for that update. Appreciate you. Angel says, do you see Raquel returning as Liv bodyguard? Maybe. I don't have that information at this point in time, and it does very much depend on where Raquel Rodriguez is with her overall recovery. We have 92 people here, only the 39 likes, less than half so far. One more gets us to 40. Let's get this rolling. We've already had 213 views, which is a damn good start. Let's keep it going. Next piece of news is as regards Alexa Bliss. You about ready for some good news, Alexa Bliss fans? Alexa Bliss is physically fit and ready to return. She's just waiting for the storylines to line up ready for it. This is a similar situation to Bayley's 2022 return at SummerSlam, where she'd been cleared for months beforehand and they'd just been waiting for the right time. It was not a case of injury, it was a case of fitness. And the WWE is confident she's more than ready to get involved. I suspect once they have a storyline ready, once the Wyatt 6 are in place ready for her, we'll see Alexa Bliss more involved going forwards. So a bit of good news there for any Alexa Bliss fans. Rosal says, Nia was my pick to win at SummerSlam, but after she pinned Bayley on SmackDown last week, I think Bayley retains now. Sam is asking about the plan for Roman at SummerSlam. I've spoken about it at length already. Cal says, I do wonder who's next for the Y6 after Howdy kills Gable at SummerSlam. Sean says, how are you enjoying the new house, Tom? Well, I need to enjoy it because today I handed the keys back, so it's official. I live here now. And honestly, quite enjoying it so far. I kind of love having an office that I don't have to suck in my gut to get to. Pretty cool. Quite enjoy it. Also, decent sized bedroom, and my family are here. It's kind of awesome. I just like hearing them in different rooms and pottering around and shit. That weird? I don't know if that's weird, but you know, before I get soppy, it's great. Ross says, sorry I'm late, Tom. Like hit, back to the start. Appreciate you, Ross. And thank you, John, as well. Brad says, yes, please, I can't wait for Alexa to return. Sean says, I wonder if Alexa will come back as a babyface or a heel. That very much depends which group she lands in. I suspect she'll come back as a massive face. Chris says, I've been ready for Alexa Bliss to return. Cal says, I can't wait for Alexa's return. However, I don't think she just slots right into the group. I can see Howdy picking up right where we left off with her last time, essentially remembering who she is. I agree. And as I have mentioned previously, the reason she's not involved in any Y6 stuff is because she wasn't expected back in time. We'll be seeing that soon. Michael also says, how's the new house? Still getting used to some of the foibles. You know? The slightly loose floorboards that bounce away and lights that don't exist. But otherwise, going great. Sid says, I've never been an Alexa Bliss fan. I don't believe she's a good wrestler. John said they've been waiting for Bliss's return. Kevin says, why don't the WWE do a storyline for Charlotte without the championship? It's getting ridiculous. Every time she returns, she gets a championship match. Largely because of smaller rosters. I suspect we're going to see Charlotte working with Tiffany when she returns, at least briefly as well. Kel says, the Fiend and Alexa's run was the only good thing about the pandemic era. And I say, how dare you? How dare you? The Viking prophets gave us everything they had. They gave you of their bodies. They gave you of their soul during the pandemic. I need to watch that again. That was amazing and ridiculous, and I need to see it. Spider-Boss says, I can't wait for Roman's return. Roman will spear Cody and Solo. As Roman says, wreck everyone and leave. And Joe argues Roman Reigns, which is fair. I quit Hell in a Cell match, mate. Angel says, when do you see Tiffany cashing in? I think it'll be a little while yet. Rick answers, it's safe to say AEW is done with Wardlow. I can see him going to WWE. Nope, not done. Not done. But it's wrapping up sooner than you'd think. I do want to briefly take this moment, just so we've hit 102 viewers, to plug the video from yesterday. WTF Wrestling is back, and I know a lot of people have missed it. WTF Wrestling yesterday was focused entirely on the Wyatt 6. If you're a regular spoiler warning viewer, most of the information there you already have. But I want to thank everyone who has watched it and encourage those who haven't to give it a shot as well. The video is doing particularly well, and it's definitely going to help this channel grow the more people watch it. So thank you for everyone who has watched, and for everyone who hasn't, please do consider checking it out. It's about the Uncle Howdyverse, and that may be worth watching. Next up, we're going to have some news on Matt and Jeff Hardy and negotiations that took place with the WWE. Razar says, as Alexa, the sixth member of the Wyatt Six, since they only have 5 members now. Spoilers. Ricky says, hey Tom buddy, happy Monday, good to see you. I was watching your Wyatt Six news this weekend. Do you think they're going to turn on Bo in the future? I think you said something about that. I did say something about that, yes. Joey says, is the report true that WWE wants to make Daniel Garcia the face of NXT if his contract expires? No. Ian Jackson says, apologies a bit late. Brilliant content as always. Keep up the great work, buddy. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate you. Sid says, will there be any debuts at SummerSlam? Depends. If it is, it'll be a Troll Tonga. Spider-Boss says, best from the pandemic era, the summer of the role models, the beginning of the Bloodline, and Drew on Raw. There was a lot of good stuff. King Azza says, Tom, do you see Priest returning at SummerSlam? No. But I also didn't see Sami Zayn returning at Money in the Bank. Cal says, we've seen honorary members of the Bloodline and Judgement Day. Could we see affiliates of the Wyatt Six? I know you spoke about Strowman yesterday. It's not really a concept they've talked about much, mostly because you're either in it or you're not. Joey said, is PWN not a reliable source? Who are they? There's a lot of people on Twitter who turn up, say 50 things, most of which has already been reported, watch as they celebrate and celebrate and celebrate and celebrate themselves, and then, when something they say is proven completely wrong, they just make a new account. They rebrand. They change the name. There's a lot of them. Keep track. Michael says, I really enjoyed Apollo Crews in the pandemic era. He did get a good run, to be fair. Hey Shane, good to see you. Chris says, I see Tiffany Stratton cashing her Money in the Bank briefcase, not at SummerSlam, but later. Spider-Boss says, if Charlotte wins the title after her return, fans will boo her again. I think fans cheer Charlotte because she's been without winning a title. I agree, which is why she's been in a championship match, but without winning it. Oh, Joey says, I believe PWN is run by an account called Viper. They seem to be buddies with SRS. Viper was someone who worked for Ringside News. No. Was it Ringside News? I think it was Ringside News. And buddies with SRS is not a phrase I ever expect to see. I'm not aware of him having buddies. Cal knows what I'm talking about. Sid says, why do you think WWE is not using Odyssey Jones? I honestly have absolutely no idea. Marcel says, I'll watch WTF after this one. Appreciate you, Marcel. Matt and Jeff Hardy. Matt and Jeff Hardy have both had discussions with the WWE about a potential return, but there is not believed to be sufficient interest from the WWE in either of them to make it worthwhile. As we know, the WWE are now paying smaller amounts and are choosing their hirings much more carefully. Neither Matt or Jeff are considered by WWE to be risks they're willing to take. Negotiations did take place. Matt Hardy in particular has been of more interest to WWE and believed to be less of a risk, but both men are said to be interested in working together, so the WWE are not interested in bringing them in at this point. Matt and Jeff Hardy both have had at least brief discussions with the WWE. Sean says, did you see the big announcement by Marvel? Robert Downey Jr. is returning to the MCU as Doctor Doom in Avengers 5 Doomsday. I did see that. I didn't immediately believe it, thought it was photoshopped, and then it was everywhere. Cal says, will we see The Fiend mentioned when Alexa returns? Surely we hear his name. Bray obviously already has been. Possible. The Fiend iteration is no longer with us. we'll see what they choose to do based on that. I do need to say a thank you to Stephen Reft. Thank you very kindly. A very generous donation, I believe, based on that number one. Your first one says, thank you for your hard work and efforts, Tom. I very much appreciate you, Stephen. If you can, please remember to hit like on that. I can't. I can hit love, and I'm absolutely going to do that. But if you're able to, please do hit like on donations like that. That is genuinely money that goes into my pocket that will help this house get repaired, help me pay for money, and feed my kids. So thank you very kindly for that. I appreciate you. And if anyone can hit like, that's just a way for you to also show your appreciation. And I do try and encourage that as much as possible. Joey says, do you know if WWE are interested in Bryan Danielson when his contract expires? Not in a wrestling capacity. Yeah. One of the only reasons that Bryan Danielson was cleared by the WWE when they didn't want to clear him is because they knew he would leave. Well, he left. And the WWE aren't really concerned or feeling that they miss him. They do feel they miss him from creative and an element of talent relations. So likely there'd be some interest there. But when it comes to a wrestling capacity, they wouldn't clear him. Which also means he's unlikely to choose to go. Spiderbell says how far Liv Morgan can go after what she's done with Dominic in the Judgement Day. I really want to know what else Liv can do. Sid says Matt and Jeff are better used in TNA than WWE. I agree. I did point out that I was confident we'd see Matt and Jeff Hardy back in TNA rather than WWE. Appreciate you, Stephen. Gal says a year next month since Bray passed away. I don't think we'll ever not hurt. It's still as heartbreaking. Those are the days I really appreciate you guys. Because there's not many people I know who would really understand how I felt in that moment. Not many people I know who even knew who he was. So it was incredibly rewarding and refreshing to be able to jump on here with you and feel heard and share grief. So even if you weren't here at that point, there will be days in future where I need you for that. And I want to say thank you in advance and thank you in retrospect as well for those who were here. It was a horrible, horrible day that came out of nowhere. And I appreciate that there were people who would listen and people who cared. Spider-Boss says, so far, what do you think about Bayley's title reign? I think because it's right after WrestleMania, it's not really hitting for me, but then neither's Cody Rhodes, really. But there was always going to be a come down after, Roman Reigns and his long-term championship. Maybe Logan Paul could turn around. I don't know. I think we need to normalize a little bit. Chris Leclerc thinks Dakota Kai will win Money in the Bank in 2025. Cal says the WWE don't really have a use for the Hardy Boys, in my opinion. TNA needs them more. I agree. Marcel says I'm very happy that the run-up to Bash in Berlin, WWE is coming to the Netherlands with a house show. I'm really looking forward to it being my first live event. I'm excited for you, mate. I'm very excited for you. They know how to do a live event. It's great stuff. Spider-Man says Jeff Hardy burned some bridges after how he left WWE. Jeff has been a flight risk. He has indeed. Bailey says the A&E feature last evening on Paul Heyman was first rate. He talks personally about what his parents meant to him and his kids today. Family means a lot. It really does. Ray says, do you like broken Matt Hardy gimmick? I don't really get the broken Matt Hardy gimmick. I know that makes me a minority and makes me a bit strange. I don't really get it. Never really did. Ricky says, that day I will not forget that Tom. I cried so much, buddy. Still miss him to this day. Sean says, I don't remember where she said it, but Jordan Grace said her contract with TNA expires at the beginning of next year. Do you see her staying with TNA or going to WWE? I see her in next year's Royal Rumble and wrestling at WrestleMania. WWE are incredibly interested. Robin Dave says, hey Tom, how are you doing? What did I miss? A little bit on Liv and Rhea, a little bit on Charlotte Flair, a little bit on Alexa Bliss, a little bit on Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. It's a very women's division show today. And we've just had a little bit on Matt and Jeff Hardy, which sort of breaks that mould. Joey says, do you see a match of Pete Dunne and Sheamus happening at Bash in Berlin? I do, yes. I think that's the ideal time for it. It's sort of a soft launch for NXT Europe because Pete Dunne is still not considered a main roster talent, really. Brad says, the only thing I want for the Hardys is the WWE Hall of Fame. There is interest from the WWE in doing so. Spider-Boss says, I think Bayley's always been the Robin between the role models. I think Bayley's title reign from 2019 to 2020 was better than her current title reign. To be fair, her current title reign is still relatively brief, but I do agree with you. I think the 2019-2020 reign was incredible. She had a lot of top-level talents to work with. Cal says, I'm so happy seeing Bo. He's absolutely smashing this out of the park. And I shed a tear that Sister Abigail always follows the buzzards. Sean says, Becky has an A&E documentary that will be airing on August 4th. Interesting. Joey says, only thing I see the Hardys coming back for is a Hall of Fame induction. I doubt WWE will let Jeff wrestle again. They will not. They won't. Quick piece of news to update. First we get to MVP. MVP announced during a Bloodsport event that he was leaving the WWE once his contract expired. The WWE have been upfront with MVP and told him there is no intention whatsoever to renew his deal. As such, he requested the option to go to other promotions and start building hype for his eventual debuts, and the WWE were happy to permit this. A big part of the disparity between MVP's view of the situation and the WWE's view of the situation is that MVP wanted to take up a specific role in the WWE that the WWE did not want to use him in. It's similar to Edge's intention to be a full-time wrestler not being something that the WWE agreed with. MVP wants to wrestle. He wants to fight. The WWE only intended to have him in the role of manager. Essentially, certain wrestlers had picked up so many injuries that the WWE simply weren't willing to take the risk anymore. The WWE do not view MVP as a wrestler. MVP, however, wants to wrestle. So knowing that there was this disparity, the WWE decided and informed MVP that there was no intention to renew his deal. Joe says, do you have Gunter beating, I'd imagine that's saying Damian Priest, or winning? I think they start splitting up JD this fall. Yeah. Cal says, will we see Alexa and Nikki tag together? I think we're going to see them terrify a lot of people when they're reunited. If they're reunited, I think it's more likely they work against each other. Spider-Boss says, after Liv said men like Dom look at women like her. Not sure what he's saying there, Spider-Boss. Cal says, is Finn going to be involved in the match? They've hinted at him turning. They have indeed. Marcel says, I hope Cody and the Wyatt Six are there on the house show. Robin Dave says, Cleveland Brown Stadium won't have a roof once Roman returns. That pop. Cal says, do you think we'll ever see Dolph return? Yes, briefly, but not seriously. And Dad says, who do you see Seth feuding with Tom? CM Punk. CM Punk. CM Punk. CM Punk. We have 100 people watching, 57 likes, 3 more, gets us to 60, which is a nice round number. And if there's one thing you know I like, because I've got OCD, it's a nice round number. 3 more, guys. Let's make that happen. Joey says, is MVP happy with the Omos manager role? He wasn't happy with the manager role. Omos unrelated. He liked Omos. He wanted to help the guy. He wasn't happy with the manager role, full stop. Right, so a little bit of personal news, particularly as regards my plans for YouTube. You will note that this week PLE Wednesdays returned, WTF Wrestling returned. We also had spoiler warning. We will have SummerSlam this weekend upcoming as well for a full watch party on the 3rd. So, guys, we're back. We're back full-time, and we're back with our full-time schedule. And you'll also get plenty of shorts along the way when there is wrestling news to talk about as well. There's still a bit of work to do in this room, as you can undoubtedly tell. These walls need a bit of attention, bit of paint, need to finish getting rid of the green on this wall, but I'm eventually going to make a corner that I can work with, which is exactly what I've done. I've built the desk here, got the blind there. There's still 3 more corners that look horrible. That wall is literally crumbling in front of my eyes. Literally crumbling in front of my eyes. But first and foremost, here. Second, there, which will eventually become a recording space. And then we'll move from there. It's a long-term project, and obviously my girls need their stuff first, and that's the priority. But I feel like it's coming together. And I did promise you the first time on Monday, last Monday, when I started here all over again, what you'd see behind me would slowly but surely improve. So far, I feel that I've kept my word. That will continue. Gotcha, Spider-Boss, okay. Sean says, who do you see Becky feuding with when she returns? It will depend entirely on when she returns. Joe says, I think it's 50-50 of who's winning with Punk and Drew. Joey says, who do you see Gunter wrestling at Bash in Berlin? Probably Damian Priest again. Sid says, anyone buying SummerSlam and TNT box office? Not me. And Cal says, in your office, will you have a tribute to Bray? No. That's not something I'm going to do. This backdrop, this office, is not about individuals like that. It is a workspace, and it will continue to be one. I don't have a picture of my kids. I'm not going to have a tribute to Bray Wyatt. Spider-Boss says, credit to AEW. I like how AEW's booked Mercedes money. Mercedes finally getting the main event booking she deserves. Last piece of news is as regards the NXT Women's Division. There's quite a bit to talk about here, and it does touch on Jade Cargill, as I mentioned earlier. So here's what's going on. Julia, Stephanie Vaca, and Delta are all bound for the NXT Women's Division, though Julia's time there will likely be brief. The next call-up from NXT is scheduled for the draft after WrestleMania, and Julia will likely be one of a number of call-ups from the Women's Division at that time. The NXT Women's Division is actually being very closely scrutinised right now. The deal for Jade Cargill involved skipping NXT, leaving Triple H essentially powerless to have her spend time in the developmental brand before going straight onto the main roster. This has not worked out, and it is, by and large, considered now a bad decision. As such, a number of talented women's wrestlers will now go through the NXT system for a longer period, and that includes talent like Julia, Stephanie Vaca, and Delta. However, in order to make room for them, a number of women will be assessed in the coming weeks for whether they will make it. Expect a number of NXT contracts to not be renewed, particularly for women who've had TV time but haven't really successfully defined themselves. This is going to be a difficult time to be a member of the NXT roster because the WWE are bringing in big names and they will cut costs by not renewing contracts for people that they feel have not really connected with the audience. Before I catch up with the chat, I want to take this opportunity to say if anyone's not yet subscribed, this is the perfect time to do so. About half of the views we get come from non-subscribed members of the audience, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. But if it is, and you want a notification every time we go live, every time I post a new video on Wednesday, on Sunday, or one of my shorts, depending on what you like, please do hit that subscribe button. I'm also, as some of you will likely expect, going to be bringing back the quizzes, which I know you haven't seen for a long time. There is a community page. There are polls. There are picture polls. I want to bring back quizzes to the overall system, meaning that you'll see a community page post pop up in your feed, and it'll be my page, and you just basically try and get the right answer for a bit of trivia. I think they were fun. People seem to enjoy them. And if you don't regularly look at the community page, you'll never see them. That's the beauty of how YouTube is at the moment. If you only watch live shows, you'll only get live shows. If you only watch shorts, you'll only get shorts. Meaning that I'm trying to cater to a lot of different areas, and so far, so good. The point there was please subscribe. Yes, Danny, there will be a watch party on Saturday. Sid says, when are you going full-time on YouTube? When I can afford it. I'm about 10% of the way to a full-time wage. 10%. Essentially, in order to go full-time, I've worked out that I need to be getting about 12 million views a year, which is about 1 million views a month. Yeah. I'm currently also trying to build the good old-fashioned Twitter machine, X as it now is, because eventually I'll be getting paid there as well. But that's based on impressions. I need to get 5 million impressions within 3 months. Had a very good period, then I moved house. That says, do you see Dustin going to WWE to manage Cody? No. Cal says, proud of you, Tommy, you deserve it, lad. Gives all safe space to come and waffle, and especially with how hard life can be, it is a few hours a week to just unwind and relax, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for joining us and making that happen, Cal. This community is all of us. It's not just me. I'm just the guy on screen. This is all of us. And the positive, life-affirming feel is also you guys. Now it says, will they do a triple threat between Seth, Punk and Drew at Berlin? That could be fun. Spider-Boss says different people, but I think WWE signed Jade Cargill because they thought Jade could be a big name as Mercedes money, quite possibly. Danny says, is Julia coming at the Great American Bash after Roxanne retains? We'll see. Cal says, do you think Nikki will talk or will we not really hear her? Will we hear anyone other than Howdy? Already detailed everything I've got about the Wyatt 6 in the video yesterday for WTF. Joe says, I'm sub to Tom, you should be too. Appreciate that. Sean said, this is from PWInsider. Thank you for sourcing. Julia is set to make an announcement at the Marigold event on Tuesday at Carrican Hall. The announcement will be Julia announcing the timeline of when she's leaving Japan to join WWE/WWE NXT. Well, spoilers indeed. Michael says, can we bring back summoning Shane McMahon? No, we cannot. How dare you? Sean says, are the SmackDown and Raw watch parties coming back? Nope. If I was going full time, I could do that. But once again, that requires me to get about 12 million views a year. If you're going to give me 12 million views, I'll bring them back. Spider-Man says the NXT Women's Division has evolved well. The NXT Women's Division get TV time and their matches deliver. Joey says, is Roxanne the most likely to be the first to get called up? Yes and no. The idea seems to be that Julia would replace Roxanne, at least briefly. That said, I can see them both coming up at the same time. Cal says, it's definitely true. I've been watching a lot of Star Wars theories recently in all his short suggestions. Calvin says, it really irks me when people say Austin Theory is not going to get over as a babyface. Give it time. I'm not sure as regards to finances involved in the tax credit one. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Calvin says, do you think Stephanie McMahon will ever return to WWE? She's made like 3 appearances this year. She has returned to WWE. She has. Quietly and backstage. Spider-Boss says, Chad Gable already getting Kurt Angle treatment. Fans at live events in Mexico chanted, you suck to Chad Gable, and so they should. Bailey says, per Wikipedia, there are 31 women on the NXT roster. That's a lot for a 2-hour show. Very true, and that's about to shoot up. Danny wants to bring back Shane and WWE Underground. And Cal says, I can't wait for Loomis's interview tonight. If it's him, I'm expecting it to be. Does seem likely to be Loomis at this point, which will tell us more about his motives. He is, after all, expected to be the sadistic stalker, and the one who does, in fact, stand apart a little. We have been live for 47 minutes. We've had 400 views. We peaked at a quite impressive 102 viewers, 67 likes, 3 more gets us 70 by the by. Ricky Julia's contract is not up. She has been injured. She is now cleared. And I'm going to wrap it up there. We'll be live once again on Friday, but we'll also have PLE Wednesdays on, of course, Wednesday, where we'll do last-minute in-depth news before SummerSlam, basically detailing everything I know about every match, including some potential different spoilers and different endings to matches. Until then, massive thank you to all of you for joining me. As usual, I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.